The future has already changed.
Secure the archives! Your Highness, leave this place immediately!
The execution platform was silent, not because the people watching had mercy, because every noble in the imperial court wanted to hear my answer. The jade seal of succession rested on a crimson cushion before me. One step forward, and I would become the next ruler of the Yin dynasty. One step, that was all history demanded. The throne is yours, Grand Chancellor Wei announced. His voice echoed beneath the carved dragon pillars. Accept the heavenly mandate. Thousands of eyes stared. Some were eager. Most were calculating. A few were frightened. I looked at the throne. Golden dragons twisted around its arms, their jeweled eyes reflecting the torchlight. I had sat there once before. I had watched the Empire celebrate. I had believed loyalty could be earned. I had believed blood meant family. I had been wrong. No. The word drifted through the palace like falling snow. For several heartbeats, no one breathed. The crown prince's attendants froze. The generals exchanged bewildered glances. Even the emperor, whose illness had confined him to a wheeled chair beside the throne, slowly raised his tired eyes toward me. "What did you say?" he whispered. I lowered my gaze respectfully. "I refuse." Gasps erupted throughout the hall. Someone dropped a ceremonial spear. Another minister nearly stumbled backward. Grand Chancellor Wei's face turned pale. "You understand what you're rejecting?" "I do. The throne of the Yin dynasty. I know exactly what it is." His brows tightened. "No man refuses absolute power." "I do." The silence became heavier than iron. Only I knew why. Only I had lived through the future waiting beyond that throne. In another lifetime, I had accepted the crown. I ruled for 11 years. The chronicles remembered me as the emperor who brought peace. History lied. Peace lasted barely 3 years. Then famine. Then rebellion. Then betrayal from the people closest to me. The armies I trusted opened the northern gates. The ministers I promoted forged imperial decrees. The princes I spared declared themselves rightful rulers. When the capital burned, they called me a tyrant to justify murdering everyone who remained loyal. Even after they chained me inside the ancestral temple, I still believed my younger brother would save me. Instead, he smiled. "I've waited 11 years for this." He personally handed the execution order to the rebels. The blade descended. Darkness swallowed everything. Yet death had not been the end. When I opened my eyes again, the imperial succession ceremony had not yet happened. The emperor still lived. The dynasty still stood. Everyone believed destiny had given me another chance to become emperor. They misunderstood. It had given me another chance to refuse. The emperor coughed violently. His frail fingers trembled against the blanket covering his knees. "Yuan," he called softly. Only he still used my childhood name. "Come closer." I obeyed. His weathered hand rested upon mine. "You have always carried burdens you never shared." His voice was barely audible. "What do you see when you look at that throne?" "Flames, corpses, children starving beside frozen rivers. The palace soaked in blood. My own execution." But I answered differently. "I see something that no longer belongs to me." Pain flashed across his aging face. "You disappoint me. I know. You would abandon your ancestors. I would rather honor them than destroy everything they built." The sentence confused everyone except me. The emperor searched my eyes for a long time. Perhaps he saw the exhaustion hidden there. Perhaps he saw someone far older than 27 years. Finally, he withdrew his hand. "If you refuse..." He paused. "The succession ends. I understand. You surrender every claim. I accept. You will never inherit this empire. I never intended to." His eyes closed. "So be it." The ceremonial drums stopped. A royal decree was drafted immediately. The ministers whispered among themselves. My younger brother, Prince Jian, lowered his head to hide the smile growing across his face. He believed he had won, exactly as he had the first time. Good. Some victories were poison disguised as wine. As the court dissolved into chaos, someone caught my sleeve. General Shun, one of the Empire's greatest commanders. He had died defending the capital in my previous life. My prince. His voice was unusually low. This doesn't resemble you. I met his eyes. No, it resembles the man I should have been. His expression hardened. Something is coming. It is. You know what? I released his hand. If I tell you now, you won't believe me. He watched me leave the hall without another word. Behind me, ministers argued over succession. Ahead of me, the palace gates opened beneath a gray winter sky. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, I walked away from the throne. Yet as I crossed the marble courtyard, an old palace servant hurried toward me. He knelt before I could stop him. My prince. His face was drained of color. The Imperial Archive. What about it? It caught fire. My footsteps stopped. The Imperial Archive. The one place containing the original border treaties, military records, tax ledgers, and every document exposing decades of corruption. It had burned 7 years later in my previous life. Not today. Not this early. Someone had changed the future before I did. Smoke rolled into the winter sky long before I reached the archive district. Soldiers struggled to organize lines of servants carrying buckets from the palace wells. Flames burst through carved wooden windows, devouring centuries of history with an almost unnatural hunger. This way, an officer shouted. The eastern wall is collapsing. A beam crashed into the courtyard. The impact sent sparks flying across polished stone. I stopped several paces from the entrance. The fire was wrong. Ordinary flames crawled. These leaped. They raced through shelves as though chasing something. General Shun arrived beside me, breathing heavily after riding across half the palace. You shouldn't be here. I know. Then why? He stopped speaking. Together we watched 3 archivists stumble outside. Each carried scrolls. Each collapsed before taking 10 steps. Not from burns. From arrows. The shafts had struck with impossible precision. Someone inside wasn't trying to destroy documents. They were killing anyone attempting to save them. General Shun's hand went to his sword. Assassins. Yes. He looked sharply toward me. You expected this. I expected something. Not this. No. The future was changing. That realization unsettled me more than the fire itself. If history could shift, then the disaster I remembered might arrive differently, which meant relying solely on memory would become dangerous. A captain rushed toward us. My prince. General, they've sealed the western exits. Who? We don't know. Another explosion thundered through the archive. Ancient lacquered shelves burst apart. Burning scrolls spiraled into the sky like black snow. I caught one before it landed in the courtyard. Half of it had already turned to ash. The surviving characters made my pulse quicken. Northern Grain Inspection. The document shouldn't have been stored here. Grain inspections belonged in the Ministry of Revenue. Unless someone had secretly moved evidence. A scream echoed from inside. Without thinking, I stepped toward the entrance. General Shin seized my arm. Have you lost your senses? There are survivors. The roof is falling. There are survivors. He tightened his grip. If you die now, refusing the throne becomes meaningless. I met his eyes. In another life. The words almost escaped. Instead, I swallowed them. I won't ignore people who can still be saved. Before he could answer, I pulled free and entered the inferno. Heat slammed into me. Breathing became agony. Burning shells collapsed around narrow stone corridors. Somewhere deeper inside, voices shouted for help. I followed them. The archive's central chamber had partially caved in. 3 scholars were trapped beneath shattered beams. Beside them knelt a young woman wearing the gray robes of an assistant historian. She struggled alone to lift timber far too heavy for her. Move! I shouted. She spun around. Recognition flashed across her soot-covered face. My prince! Step aside. Together we forced one beam upward. The trapped scholars crawled free one after another. The youngest historian coughed violently. They're after the Black Register. What register? Before he could answer, a masked figure dropped silently from the balcony above. His blade flashed toward the scholar's throat. I drew the fallen guard's sword beside my feet. Steel collided. The impact numbed my wrist. The assassin retreated 2 steps, clearly surprised. "You shouldn't be alive in here," he said. "Neither should you," I thought. His fighting style? I knew it. Shadow River Sect. Officially destroyed 15 years ago. Unofficially employed by powerful ministers whenever inconvenient witnesses needed to disappear. The first time I lived, I never discovered that truth until my final year. Now one stood before me. He attacked again. Fast. Precise. Merciless. I gave ground instead of matching strength. His movements revealed exactly what I remembered. A weakness after every third strike. I waited. 1, 2, 3. His shoulders shifted. I stepped inside his guard. The pommel of my sword struck beneath his jaw. He staggered. General Shun burst through the smoke with soldiers behind him. "Seize him." The assassin smiled beneath his mask. Then he bit down. Poison. By the time the soldiers reached him, blood had already flowed from beneath the cloth covering his mouth. Dead. Just like every assassin I remembered. Never captured. Never questioned. Never traced back to their masters. General Shun removed the mask anyway. No one recognized the face. The young historian clutched my sleeve with trembling fingers. "The register. Where is it?" He pointed weakly toward a hidden alcove behind a fallen bookshelf. "It names everyone." His eyes rolled back before he finished. "Alive, but unconscious." The assistant historian crawled toward the alcove. Behind loose stone rested a narrow black lacquered chest untouched by the flames. She stared at it, then at me. "My prince. I've never seen this before." Neither had I. Yet something inside me whispered that this chest had burned in my first life. Without opening it, I lifted it into my arms. It was unexpectedly heavy. Not with gold. With secrets. Outside, the palace bells began ringing. Not for the fire. For an emergency meeting of the imperial court. Someone had already learned that the Black Register still existed. And someone powerful would soon come looking for it. The palace bells continued to toll as General Shun's soldiers formed a protective ring around us. Every official walking toward the Hall of State glanced at the black lacquered chest in my arms. Most hid their curiosity. A few failed. Fear was harder to conceal than greed. General Shun lowered his voice. "My prince, if this chest is important enough to kill for, bringing it into court is dangerous. If we hide it, whoever started this fire will have time to erase every remaining trail. And if we reveal it, they'll reveal themselves." He studied me for a long moment. "You're speaking like a man who already knows the next move." I almost smiled. "If I truly knew the future, General, I would be a terrible gambler." He snorted. "I've watched enough gamblers to know when someone is bluffing." Before I could answer, a familiar voice interrupted us. "My elder brother certainly enjoys attracting attention." Prince Jian approached with measured steps, dressed in white silk embroidered with golden clouds. His expression carried perfect concern. Too perfect. He stopped before me and bowed slightly. "I heard about the fire." "You heard quickly. The palace has many years." His eyes settled on the chest. "And what exactly did you rescue?" "A box." His smile remained. "You've always preferred short answers. And you've always preferred long questions." For a heartbeat, neither of us spoke. In my previous life, I had mistaken that smile for warmth. Now I could see it clearly. It was calculation. "I refuse the throne," I said calmly. "You should be pleased." "I am pleased." He answered too quickly, then corrected himself. "I mean, the Empire respects your decision." "The Empire? Our family. Those are rarely the same thing." His smile faltered, only for an instant. Then it returned. "You must be exhausted." "I am. Allow me to keep that chest safe until the investigation begins." "No." His fingers tightened behind his sleeves. "I insist." "I decline. It belongs to the court. It was found before witnesses. The court will receive it in the court." General Shun shifted slightly. Not enough to seem threatening. Enough to remind everyone nearby that he stood behind me. Prince Jin noticed. "So," he chuckled lightly, "you've made powerful friends. I've earned honest ones." His eyes cooled. "I hope honesty serves you well." He turned and walked toward the Hall of State. Only after he disappeared did General Shen exhale. He wanted that chest badly. I know. You truly don't know what's inside. I know only one thing. What? If he wants it, it shouldn't reach him. The Hall of State overflowed with ministers. Smoke still drifted through open windows. The Emperor sat upon his elevated chair, his illness more visible than ever. His breathing sounded strained. Grand Chancellor Wei stepped forward. The Imperial Archive has suffered catastrophic damage. Murmurs spread. However, he looked toward me. One surviving item has been recovered. Every gaze turned. I carried the chest to the center of the hall. The Emperor nodded. Open it. The iron lock resisted at first, then snapped. Inside lay dozens of narrow bamboo ledgers bound with black cord. Each carried a crimson seal. No ministry insignia. No noble family crest. Only a single handwritten character. Shadow. Minister Han's face turned pale. I noticed. So did General Shen. Grand Chancellor Wei picked up the first ledger. His eyes widened. Impossible. The Emperor frowned. Read. Wei hesitated, then obeyed. Payments issued through unofficial treasury channels. Military grain shortages intentionally fabricated, border taxes diverted to private estates. The hall erupted. This cannot be genuine. Forgery. Who wrote these? Wei opened another ledger. Names of cooperating officials. His voice slowed. Minister Han. Silence. Governor Liu. More silence. Deputy Treasurer Chiu. Each name struck the court like thunder. Minister Han stepped forward immediately. Your Majesty, these records are fabricated. They're slander. The Emperor looked at him. Are they? Absolutely. General Shen folded his arms. Then why are you sweating? Han touched his forehead instinctively. His hand came away damp. A ripple of uneasy laughter passed through the ministers. Han glared at Shen. You soldiers understand nothing of administration, and you understand too much about missing grain. The Emperor raised one trembling hand. Enough. His gaze settled upon me. You found this. Yes. Did anyone else see where it was hidden? Several witnesses. The assistant historian stepped forward nervously. I saw His Highness recover it. The rescued scholars, though injured, confirmed her words. No one could claim the chest had been planted. Not honestly. Minister Han suddenly knelt. Your Majesty, I request immediate examination by the Ministry of Justice. Reasonable. Too reasonable. In my first life, this request had never happened. Another change. The Emperor nodded slowly. So ordered. Prince Jian finally spoke. I volunteered to supervise the investigation personally. I looked at him. There it was. The move I had expected. Not because I remembered it. Because ambitious men rarely resisted opportunities to control evidence. I object. The words left my mouth before anyone else reacted. The court fell silent again. Prince Jian smiled politely. On what grounds? Conflict of interest. He laughed. What interest? You stand next in line for succession. His expression froze. If corruption reaches the highest offices. I continued quietly. The investigation must remain above suspicion. Several ministers exchanged uneasy glances. The argument was impossible to dismiss. Not because they trusted me, because they didn't trust each other. The Emperor leaned back slowly, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. My sons, his voice barely carried through the hall. Must every discussion become a contest? Prince Jian lowered his head first. My apologies. I bowed as well. I seek only fairness. The old ruler closed his eyes. When fairness becomes rare. He coughed violently into a silk cloth. Everyone claims to defend it. The cloth returned stained with blood. The hall fell silent. Even Minister Han looked shaken. The Emperor hid the cloth before most could see it. I noticed. So did Prince Jian. A shadow crossed his face. Not grief. Calculation. He was measuring time. How long until the throne stood empty? Grand Chancellor Wei stepped forward carefully. Your Majesty should rest. The Emperor nodded. The investigation. His breathing grew heavier. Shall be led by the censorate. Not Prince Jian. Not Minister Han. A neutral body. The decision disappointed more than one face in the room. Mine remained still. The Emperor slowly rose with assistance from attendants. Before leaving, he looked toward me. Remain. Everyone else was dismissed. The Great Hall emptied until only 4 people remained. The Emperor, General Shun, Grand Chancellor Wei, and me. The old ruler stared through the open doors toward the smoke rising from the ruined archive. When you were a child, he said quietly, you once asked me why emperors sit higher than everyone else. I remember. You said it looked lonely. It does. A tired smile touched his lips. You've changed. I have. You refuse power. I refused a seat. A throne is never merely a seat. No, it is a burden. His gaze sharpened despite his illness. So, tell me honestly, are you afraid? I answered after a long silence. Yes. Of ruling? No. Then of what? Of becoming the reason this empire dies. The room became perfectly still. Grand Chancellor Wei slowly turned toward me. General Shun's expression hardened. The Emperor searched my face. You truly believe the dynasty can fall? I know it can. His fingers tightened around his cane. Because of these ledgers? No. Then because of what? I looked beyond him, toward the dragon throne. Because corruption never destroys a nation alone. What does? When honest people believe someone else will stop it. No one spoke. The Emperor closed his eyes again. You sound older than I am. Perhaps I was. Not in years. In regret. After several moments, he dismissed us. As General Shun and I crossed the palace gardens, snow began to fall. Neither of us spoke until the palace walls disappeared behind pine trees. Finally, he asked, what happens now? I leave. You just uncovered the largest corruption case in decades. Exactly. He frowned. You intend to walk away? I intend to stop standing where everyone expects me. He stopped walking. You think they'll turn against one another? They already have. Minister Han, he'll search desperately for whoever else knows about the ledgers. Prince Jian, he'll try to control the investigation without appearing to the Emperor. He'll trust fewer people each day. General Shun stared at me. And you? I'll watch. He shook his head. I've served 3 emperors. I've fought 20 campaigns. I've buried more friends than I care to count. He stepped closer. But I've never met anyone who chooses less power when more is offered. I've already learned what power costs. He opened his mouth to question me further. But hoofbeats interrupted us. A dust-covered courier raced through the northern gate. He leaped from his horse before it fully stopped. Urgent report. Palace guards surrounded him immediately. The courier fell to one knee. Disaster on the northern frontier. General Shun's face changed instantly. What happened? The Black Wolf Fortress. The courier struggled to breathe. Has surrendered. Silence. My heartbeat slowed. No, not surrendered. It wasn't supposed to happen for another 18 months. General Shun looked toward me. You've gone pale. Because I understood something terrifying. The future wasn't merely changing. It was accelerating. And someone else, someone I had never encountered in my previous life, was already moving pieces across the board. Snow continued falling between us. For the first time since receiving my second life, I no longer knew who was truly pulling the strings. The Northern War Council convened before dawn. Maps covered the long oak table in the Hall of Military Affairs, their edges held down by bronze weights shaped like crouching tigers. Candles flickered despite the closed windows, casting uncertain shadows over every face. General Shun stood at the head of the table. The courier has confirmed it. His finger rested upon a fortress marked in black ink. Black Wolf Fortress has surrendered without a siege. The room erupted. Impossible. It holds 30,000 troops. The walls have never fallen. General Shun didn't silence them immediately. He let the disbelief settle into fear. Only then did he speak again. The gates were opened from within. Silence returned. A betrayal, not a defeat. I watched from the back of the chamber. No one had invited me. No one asked me to leave either. That suited me. I had already decided not to stand where power naturally gathered. One minister noticed me and frowned. His Highness refused the throne. Why is he attending military discussions? General Shun answered before I could. He isn't attending. The general glanced toward me. He's observing, a subtle distinction, yet an important one. I folded my hands behind my back and remained silent. Let them underestimate silence. It had protected me far better than authority ever had. A young strategist hurried into the chamber, carrying another sealed report. My lords, he bowed deeply. Scouts found abandoned supply wagons 15 miles south of the fortress. General Shun accepted the report. No signs of battle. None. Then why abandon provisions? The strategist hesitated. We found something else. He unfolded a blood-stained banner. The emblem embroidered across its center froze my thoughts. A silver raven. Not the Black Wolf. Not any northern tribe. Not any imperial army. A symbol I had never seen. The future had shifted again. After the council ended, General Shun caught up with me beneath the palace corridors. You recognized that banner. I recognized that I should have. He frowned. What does that mean? It means someone new has entered the game. You speak in riddles. I wish they were riddles. He studied me for a long moment before lowering his voice. If I asked whether you've hidden something from everyone, I have. Would you answer honestly? Yes. And I've hidden many things. To my surprise, he laughed. A terrible habit. A necessary one. His expression turned serious once more. Will those hidden things save the Empire? I don't know. That's the first uncertain answer you've given me. Because it's the first honest one. He nodded slowly. I believe you. Those words struck me harder than I expected. In my previous life, General Shun had trusted me until the day he died defending the capital. This time, he trusted me before I had earned it. That frightened me more than suspicion would have. Trust created expectations. Expectations created burdens. I had refused the greatest burden of all. By afternoon, I had left the palace. The residence granted to me as a prince stood strangely quiet. Most servants expected I would soon reclaim political influence. Instead, I dismissed half of them. An old steward stared in disbelief. Your Highness, there's less work now, but your household will become smaller. The court may misunderstand. They already misunderstand everything. He bowed reluctantly. As you command. Watching the servants depart felt oddly peaceful. In my first life, I had surrounded myself with advisors, guards, attendants, and officials. The palace had always been crowded, yet I had never felt more alone. Now the estate echoed with emptiness, and for the first time in years, I could hear my own thoughts. A knock interrupted the silence. The assistant historian from the archive stood outside the gate. Her gray robes had been replaced with plain traveling clothes. She looked exhausted. My prince, you shouldn't be here. I know. Then why come? She glanced nervously over her shoulder. They're killing everyone who saw the black register. The words hung in the cold air. How many? The 2 scholars you rescued. Her voice trembled. They were poisoned overnight. A chill spread through me. Not surprise. Recognition. The same method. The same efficiency. Shadow River. Only this time, they moved faster. They'll come for you, I said quietly. They already tried. She pulled back her sleeve. A fresh cut crossed her forearm. I escaped. What's your name? She blinked. You never asked. I am now. Lin Shui. I need the truth, Lin Shui. She hesitated, then reached in her satchel. From within, she removed a narrow strip of silk, no larger than my hand. It carried dozens of tiny names. Not officials. Merchants. Doctors. Messengers. Ordinary people. What is this? I found it hidden inside the chest. I looked sharply toward her. The chest was sealed. I noticed a false bottom. General Shun hadn't. Neither had I. Lin Shui lowered her voice. I think this is the real secret. I spread the silk strip across my desk. The names meant nothing at first glance. No titles. No ranks. Only people. Bakers. Stable keepers. Traveling physicians. Village teachers. Each followed by a number. Lin Shui stood beside the window, watching the street outside. I memorized the order before bringing it. You expected someone to take it. I expected someone to kill me. Her honesty left no room for comfort. I studied the list again. Then one name caught my eye. Old Shun, the ferryman of Willow Crossing. My memories stirred. In my first life, Old Chun had been executed during the famine for supposedly smuggling grain. I had signed the warrant. Not personally, but my seal had, because forged reports claimed he had profited while villages starved. What if? No. I turned to another name. Dr. Wu, executed for spreading plague medicine without permission. Then another, Schoolmaster Liang, accused of inciting rebellion. Each had died under charges that reached my desk years later. I slowly lowered the silk. They weren't criminals. Lin Shui looked at me. You know them? I remember their names. They're scattered across the empire. I know. What connects them? I whispered the answer before fully believing it. Witnesses. She frowned. Witnesses to what? I don't know. Yet. A loud crash shattered the quiet. The front gate burst inward. Wood splintered across the courtyard. 6 masked figures rushed inside. Shadow River. Again. Lin Shui instinctively stepped backward. They found me. No. I reached for the sword hanging beside the door. They found us. The lead assassin raised one hand. Leave the woman. The prince is unnecessary. Interesting. In my previous life, they always targeted me. Now I wasn't the priority. What does she know? I asked. No answer. Only steel. The first assassin lunged. I sidestepped instead of meeting force with force. His blade struck empty air. The second attacker came from my left. Too predictable. He expected panic. Instead, I overturned the heavy writing table. It crashed into both men, disrupting their formation. Run! I shouted. Lin Shui didn't argue. She fled through the rear corridor. Good. The assassins immediately split. Came for me. 2 chased her. Exactly what I wanted. I retreated deliberately through the narrow hallways. Wide courtyards favored numbers. Confined passages favored memory. Their fighting style had changed little across 2 lifetimes. 3 quick cuts. 1 low sweep. A pause. Always the pause. The first assassin fell when his own momentum carried him into a stone pillar. The second lost his weapon after I trapped his wrist beneath a sliding door. I didn't kill either. I kept moving. Footsteps thundered beyond the walls. General Shun. He had stationed hidden guards after all. Steel clashed outside. The remaining assassins realized reinforcements had arrived. Their discipline never broke. The leader gave a sharp whistle. Retreat. Within seconds, they vanished over the rooftops as though swallowed by the evening mist. General Shun entered moments later with 20 soldiers. His eyes swept across the damaged residence. You're injured. A scratch. He looked toward the shattered gate. They ignored expensive treasures. They wanted a person. His gaze found Lin Shui emerging cautiously from the rear hall. Understanding dawned. The historian. She bowed shakily. I'm sorry to bring trouble. General Shun shook his head. No. His eyes narrowed thoughtfully. You brought answers. Before anyone could speak further, one of his officers hurried into the courtyard carrying a captured object. General. The officer held up a broken arrow. Its shaft bore the same silver raven engraved upon the banner recovered from Black Wolf Fortress. General Shun looked at me. So the assassins served them. I don't think so. What do you mean? I took the arrow and turned it over. The raven had been carved after the arrow was made. The grooves were fresh, deliberate, visible, almost like a message. Someone wanted us to find this symbol. Not hide it, not erase it, show it, which meant the silver raven wasn't merely an enemy. It was an invitation, or a warning, and somewhere beyond the capital, whoever carried that banner already knew I had refused the throne. Snow melted into muddy streets as the capital awakened beneath a sky the color of old steel. Rumors spread faster than merchants. The archive fire, the Black Register, the attempted assassinations, the surrendered fortress. Every tea house offered a different version of the truth. None of them were correct. That morning, however, truth arrived wearing black robes. An imperial summons waited outside my residence. The seal belonged not to the emperor, but to the censorate. General Shun frowned as he read it. They're calling an emergency hearing. So they finally moved. They've already arrested 3 ministers. Only 3. He looked at me. You expected more? I expected fewer. He folded the decree. You think this is another move. It always is. The Hall of Public Inquiry had never been built for comfort. Its stone walls amplified every whisper. Its raised platform forced the accused to stand beneath the gaze of dozens of officials. Today, it was overflowing. Minister Han knelt in chains. Governor Liu stood beside him, his elegant robes replaced by plain prison garments. Deputy Treasurer Chiu avoided everyone's eyes. Grand Chancellor Wei addressed the assembly. Evidence recovered from the Imperial Archive has been examined. He paused. Much of it is authentic. Shock rippled through the chamber. However, the single word changed everything. Several records appear to have been altered. Murmurs erupted. Minister Han immediately looked up. I told you, they framed me. General Shun's jaw tightened. I remained silent. This was unexpected. Or perhaps, expected in a different way. Someone had inserted false entries into genuine evidence. Enough truth to destroy trust. Enough lies to destroy certainty. An elegant strategy. Prince Jian stepped forward. Your Majesty's health prevents his attendance. He bowed toward the imperial banner. As acting representative, I request that no verdict be issued until every ledger is independently verified. Reasonable. Measured. Perfectly timed. Many ministers nodded. Delay favored whoever feared the truth. Grand Chancellor Wei hesitated. The request has merit. Of course it did. That was why it was dangerous. A voice suddenly echoed from the rear. I object. Every head turned. Lin Shui walked into the chamber, carrying a bundle wrapped in faded blue cloth. Her hands trembled. Her steps did not. Prince Jian's expression remained calm. Too calm. You are Assistant Historian Lin Shui. What standing do you have before this court? None. She swallowed. But I have something your investigators never found. The room fell silent. She placed a bundle upon a table. Inside lay dozens of thin wax tablets. Ancient, dust-covered, perfectly preserved. General Shun looked toward me. You knew? No. For once. I truly hadn't. Lin Shui untied the final cord. My teacher hid these beneath the archive floor. Grand Chancellor Wei picked up the first tablet. His face slowly lost all color. These, he whispered, are the original audit records. Not copies. Not rewritten ledgers. Originals. Impossible to forge convincingly. Minister Han's shoulders sagged. Not with relief. With despair. Because truth had just become undeniable. The hearing continued until dusk. Each tablet confirmed years of stolen grain. Forged military reports. Illegal taxation. Bribes paid through hidden accounts. One accusation after another collapsed beneath authentic records. Yet something still troubled me. Prince Jian never panicked. Not once. He watched every revelation with quiet attention. Almost as if he were waiting for something else. When the final tablet was read, Grand Chancellor Wei stood. The evidence establishes widespread corruption. He looked toward Minister Han. Do you deny these findings? Han laughed. The sound startled everyone. It wasn't desperate. It was tired. So, he looked around the chamber. You finally reached me. No one answered. His smile widened. You truly believe, he said softly, that I built all of this alone? A chill swept across the room. General Shun took one step forward. Name them. Han looked directly at Prince Jian. My younger brother met his gaze without blinking. Then Han laughed again. Interesting. He lowered his head. I won't make your work easier. Before anyone could stop him, he bit into the hidden poison capsule beneath one tooth. Blood spilled across the stone floor. Another dead witness. Another severed trail. General Shun cursed under his breath. I simply closed my eyes. Exactly like the assassins. Exactly like before. Whoever controlled this conspiracy never allowed captured pieces to remain on the board. The hearing ended without celebration. Justice had begun. Victory had not. Outside, cold rain washed blood from the courthouse steps. Crowds gathered behind palace guards, desperate for news. Was Minister Han guilty? Who started the archive fire? Is the dynasty collapsing? Questions rose from every direction. No one answered them. General Shun and I walked through the crowd in silence. Only after we entered a quiet temple courtyard did he finally speak. I've spent my life fighting enemies with banners. He looked toward the rain. I don't know how to fight enemies who erase themselves. You don't. He turned sharply. What? You expose them. You don't chase shadows. You force them into the light. He frowned. And if they refuse, they lose. You sound certain. I've seen what happens when people hide forever. Not all memories deserve to remain buried. Some needed daylight, even if they hurt. That evening the Emperor requested my presence. His private chamber had grown darker, smaller. The illness had stolen much from him. Strength, color, time. He dismissed every attendant. Only we remained. I heard. His voice cracked. About Han. Yes. He chose death. He chose silence. The Emperor nodded faintly. Perhaps they are the same. For several moments, neither of us spoke. Then he surprised me. You were right. I looked up. The throne. His tired eyes rested upon the flickering candle beside his bed. It was never merely power. No, it was a cage. A weak smile crossed his face. I spent 40 years convincing myself I ruled this empire. His fingers tightened around the blanket. I now wonder whether I merely occupied the seat while others built their own kingdom beneath me. His honesty hurt more than any accusation, because he finally saw what I had seen too late. I have one request, he whispered. If I can grant it, when I die. His breathing slowed. Do not inherit this throne. I stared at him. You still wish me to refuse? I wish you. He coughed violently. To survive. The room fell silent, except for the rain against wooden shutters. I cannot order you. I can only ask. I bowed deeply. I will honor your wish. Relief softened his expression. For the first time since my return, the burden inside my chest became lighter. Not because the future was certain, because the man whose expectations had once chained me had finally released them. 3 days later, the censorate announced its verdicts. Dozens of officials were stripped of rank. Their estates were confiscated. Hidden granaries were opened to starving villages. The empire rejoiced. Too soon. While the capital celebrated, another report arrived from the north. General Shin entered my residence, carrying it in silence. He placed the sealed dispatch on the table. I broke the seal. Inside was a single page. No military report. No casualty list. Only one sentence written in elegant brushstrokes. You refused the throne exactly as expected. No signature. Only a silver raven painted beneath the words. I stared at the message for a long time. General Shun's voice became almost a whisper. They were watching. Yes. They predicted your decision. Yes. He slowly drew his sword. Then whoever leads them knows you. I folded the letter carefully. No. I looked toward the northern horizon beyond the window. He knows the man I used to become. The Silver Raven's letter remained on my desk for 7 days. I never burned it. I never answered it. Every morning, I unfolded the single sheet, read the same sentence, and placed it back into its wooden case. General Shun finally lost his patience. You've been staring at that thing as though it might begin speaking. It already has. It contains one sentence. One sentence can reveal more than 100 pages. He folded his arms. Then tell me what you've discovered. I looked toward the courtyard, where melting snow dripped steadily from the tiled roofs. The writer wanted me to believe he knows everything. And people who truly know everything don't announce it. General Shun considered that. So the letter is bait. Exactly. For what? To make me react. And you won't. I already did. He blinked. I ignored it. A faint smile crossed his face. I suppose silence can be an answer. It often unsettles people more than words. Life outside the palace felt unfamiliar. Not because it lacked comfort, because it lacked constant urgency. I no longer attended court unless summoned. I no longer approved memorials. I no longer spent nights studying tax reports until dawn. Instead, I walked. The capital revealed a different face when viewed without guards surrounding me. Merchants argued over vegetables. Children chased paper kites through narrow alleys. Old craftsmen repaired broken furniture with patient hands. Ordinary lives. The kind emperors rarely had time to notice. At a small bridge crossing Willow Canal, an old ferryman called out, "Young master." His weathered face stirred an old memory. Old Chun, alive, still laughing, still ferrying travelers across the river. In my previous life, I had unknowingly signed the decree that condemned him. Now he smiled without recognizing me. The crossing is free today. What? My granddaughter recovered from illness. He pointed proudly toward a little girl waving from the boat. The physician refused payment. Dr. Wu, another name from the silk list. I crossed the bridge in silence. Perhaps this was the true purpose of the second life. Not to save an empire, to save the people hidden beneath it. That afternoon, Lin Shui arrived carrying several worn books. I found more records. She placed them on the table. None concerned corruption. I opened the first volume. Travel permits. Village census rolls. Harvest reports. Confused, I looked at her. Why bring these? Because every name from the silk list appears somewhere. I turned another page. She was right. Every ordinary person had quietly crossed paths over the years. Not with one another, with hidden government inspectors, invisible investigators, people sent by previous emperors to observe corruption without revealing themselves. The realization settled slowly. The silk list, Lin Shui nodded, isn't a list of criminals. It's a list of witnesses and protectors, the hidden network. The empire had possessed one all along, until someone hunted them down. No wonder so many innocent people died in my previous life. The eyes that could have exposed corruption had been systematically erased. General Shun entered moments later. His expression was unusually bright. I have news. Good or bad? Unexpected. He handed me another sealed document. This one carried the emperor's personal seal. Inside was not an order. It was a decree. By imperial command, the residence granted to Prince Yuan shall become the Hall of Civil Restoration. Its purpose shall be to receive petitions from common citizens ignored by local officials. I read it twice, then a third time. General Shun smiled. The emperor gave you work. He gave me freedom. I would no longer rule from above. I would listen from below. For the first time, the future felt different. Not because danger had disappeared, because purpose had changed. Within a month, the courtyard of my residence transformed completely. Nobles stopped visiting. Farmers began arriving instead. So did merchants, teachers, widows, retired soldiers, people carrying problems too small for the imperial court, yet large enough to destroy their lives. No grand ceremonies accompanied their arrival, only long lines and patient conversations. Lin Shui organized records with remarkable precision. General Shin quietly assigned trustworthy veterans to maintain order. No banners hung above the entrance. No official titles were displayed. The people simply called it the house that listens. The name embarrassed me. It also reminded me why I had refused the throne. Power often spoke. Responsibility listened. One rainy evening, old Chen returned. He placed a small wooden box upon my desk. I've kept this for 20 years. For me, for whoever finally deserved it. Inside lay a bronze medallion shaped like a raven. Not silver, bronze. Its wings stretched downward instead of upward. Lin Shui leaned closer. This symbol, I've seen it before, I whispered. Not in this life. In the palace archives years after the dynasty began collapsing. The Bronze Raven, an intelligence organization established by the dynasty's founder. Its purpose had been simple. Observe everyone. Serve no faction. Protect the empire itself. Old Chen smiled sadly. We thought we were gone. We almost were. Most of us died quietly. Some disappeared. He looked directly into my eyes. But a few survived. Waiting. For whom? For someone who would choose the empire over the throne. The room became perfectly silent. He knew. Not everything, but enough. You knew I would refuse? No. His smile deepened. I hoped someone eventually would. He pushed the medallion toward me. It belongs to you now. I slowly shook my head. No. His smile faded. I don't want another secret organization. He stared at me. Then what do you want? The truth. Nothing hidden. No more invisible guardians. No more silent manipulation. Old Chen's shoulders relaxed. I wondered if you'd answer that way. He picked the medallion back up. Then, before our eyes, he broke it in half. The sound echoed through the room. Good. He let the broken pieces fall into the brazier. They served their purpose. The bronze raven blackened in the flames. An era quietly ended. Late that night, another letter arrived. Again, only one sentence. You continue disappointing me. Again, the silver raven. This time, however, I smiled. General Shun raised an eyebrow. You're smiling because he's becoming impatient. And patient people make fewer mistakes. I folded the letter without answering. Outside, dawn slowly painted the eastern sky. For the first time since receiving my second life, I no longer felt as though I were chasing the future. The future had begun chasing me. The first arrow struck before sunrise. It buried itself in the wooden gate of the house that listens with a sharp crack that echoed through the empty street. No explosive message, no hidden poison, only a strip of white silk tied beneath the feathers. General Shun untied it while the guards searched the rooftops. He handed it to me without speaking, for words had been written in careful brushstrokes. Come alone. North Gate. No signature was necessary. The silver raven had finally stopped hiding. General Shun's expression darkened. You're not going. I am. It's an obvious trap. Yes. Then why walk into it? Because for the first time, I folded the silk carefully. He asked instead of ordering. Lin Shuai looked up from the records she had been organizing. That makes no sense. It does. He wants a conversation. General Shun rested one hand on the hilt of his sword. And if he wants your head afterward, I smiled faintly. He has already had the opportunity. Neither of them understood. The man behind the silver raven had watched me refuse the throne. He had known I would survive. If killing me had been his objective, I would already be dead. The northern gate overlooked a frozen river. Winter had begun to surrender to spring, but the water still carried broken sheets of ice downstream. The city walls behind me stood quiet. No guards, no merchants, only a single figure waiting beneath a leafless willow tree. He wore plain traveling clothes instead of noble robes. His hair had begun turning silver despite appearing no older than 50. When I approached, he bowed respectfully. Prince Yuan, I refused that title. Old habits remain. His voice carried neither arrogance nor fear, only exhaustion. You've written many letters. I have. You've caused many deaths. His eyes lowered. I have. You burned the archive. No. You ordered the assassinations. No. I stopped. Then who are you? He looked toward the river. My name. He paused. Is Su Run. The name meant nothing. He seemed unsurprised. It wouldn't. I erased myself long ago. He reached into his sleeve and withdrew another bronze medallion. Half of it remained broken. The other half matched the piece old Shun had burned. You belong to the bronze raven. I let it. I remained silent. Surin smiled bitterly. Not every secret deserves preservation. No, but some deserve explanation. He motioned toward a nearby stone bench. I've waited 20 years to tell someone the truth. Against every instinct, I sat. The founder of our dynasty, Su Run, began quietly, created two organizations, the Bronze Raven and the Silver Raven. Cold wind swept across the frozen river. The Bronze Raven protected the people. The Silver Raven protected the throne. I frowned. They balanced one another. They were supposed to. His eyes clouded. But rulers fear balance. So one side grew stronger. He nodded. Each emperor relied more heavily upon the Silver Raven. Power shifted. Secrets multiplied. Eventually, he looked directly at me. The throne became more important than the empire. Every word fit pieces I had never understood. The archive, fire, ordered by the Silver Raven. The assassins, their agents. The corruption, they tolerated it. So long as the throne remained secure. I slowly exhaled. In my previous life, I stopped myself. Su Ren's expression changed. You remember. The words froze me. You know, I suspected. Ow! He smiled sadly. Because I remember too. For a long moment, the river was the only sound between us. You lived another life. Su Ren nodded. So did you. I wasn't certain. Neither was I. The world seemed to narrow until only the two of us remained. When did you return? The same day you did. And you knew? I knew only one thing. He looked toward the capital beyond the walls. If you accepted the throne again, history would repeat itself. So you sent the letters. Yes, you accelerated events. Only enough to force hidden enemies into the open before they grew too powerful. The archive, the fortress, the investigations. Everything had happened earlier. Not to destroy the empire, to save it. You could have told me. You wouldn't have believed a stranger claiming to remember another lifetime. He wasn't wrong. I looked at the frozen river. So why reveal yourself now? Because my work is finished. He reached into his robe and removed a small leather journal. This contains every surviving Silver Raven cell, every commander, every hidden treasury. He placed it on the stone bench between us. I've spent 2 lives trying to control them. I failed both times. He smiled with quiet relief. You chose differently. I chose to walk away. Exactly. His eyes softened. The empire never needed another emperor. It needed someone willing to refuse becoming one. For the first time since receiving my second life, the weight I had carried began to disappear. Not because every enemy had fallen, because I finally understood the lesson I had been given. Changing the future had never depended upon sitting on the throne. It had depended upon refusing it. Months passed. The journal exposed the remaining Silver Raven network. Without secret protection, corrupt officials turned against one another. Some surrendered. Some fled. Some attempted a bargain. None escaped the consequences they had built for themselves. General Shun was appointed Grand Marshal, not because of family, because of merit. Lin Shui became Chief Archivist. Every recovered record was copied and open to public inspection. No more hidden ledgers. No more forgotten witnesses. Old Chen returned to his ferry. Dr. Wu continued treating villagers free of charge. Schoolmaster Liang reopened his village classroom. Lives once erased from history remained ordinary. And because they remained ordinary, they remained precious. The emperor passed away peacefully during the first warmth of spring. His funeral stretched across 7 days. When the ministers gathered to proclaim the next ruler, they searched the crowd for me. I never stepped forward. Prince Jian accepted the throne, not with triumph, with humility. The investigations had changed him, or perhaps fear had. Either way, he ruled beneath laws stronger than his ambitions. That was enough. As the ceremony concluded, he approached me privately. I spent years believing you were my rival. He lowered his head. I was wrong. You were my brother. His eyes reddened. I don't deserve forgiveness. This isn't forgiveness. I rested a hand on his shoulder. It's an opportunity. What kind? Don't repeat our family's mistakes. He nodded silently. No grand speeches followed. None were necessary. Years later, children would cross Willow Canal on Old Chen's ferry and ask why the former prince never became emperor. The old ferryman always smiled before answering, because he understood something most powerful men never do. What? He knew the highest seat isn't always the greatest place to stand. I often heard those stories while walking through markets unnoticed. People bowed less than before. They smile more. I preferred it that way. The house that listens remained open. Its doors never closed to ordinary voices. Sometimes the problems brought before me were no larger than a broken contract or an unfair tax. Sometimes they changed a village. Occasionally, they changed the empire. Quietly. Without crowns. Without dragons. Without anyone realizing history had once stood at the edge of collapse. I had lived it twice. The first time, I believed ruling would save everything. The second time, I discovered that walking away from power demanded far greater courage. And in the end, the dynasty survived. Not because I became its emperor, but because I finally refused to become one.